All right, listen up. I need you to hear this because it could change everything for you. You are wasting too much of your energy on people who do not deserve a single drop of it. You are spending your precious time replaying conversations in your head, wondering what they meant, worrying about what they think, chasing validation that was never yours to begin with. And while you're stuck in that endless loop, your life is quietly slipping away from you. Enough. It's time to shift that focus back where it belongs, on you. You already know this. You feel it every time you bend yourself in half for someone who wouldn't even meet you halfway. Every time you twist your words just to keep the peace. Every time you shrink yourself to fit into a space that was never meant for you. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you put yourself first, truly? When was the last time you stopped worrying about how your decisions might be judged? Or whether someone would still like you if you said no, or if you drew a line? You've built a life trying to keep everyone else comfortable, trying to meet everyone's expectations, and it's exhausting. You keep telling yourself it's loyalty, it's kindness, it's just being a good person, but deep down you know the truth. It's fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of being left out, fear of standing alone. But the truth is, you're not being kind to yourself. You're betraying yourself. Because not everyone is meant to go where you're going. Some people, as harsh as it sounds, they don't want to see you win. They like you when you're small, when you're doubting yourself, when you're easy to control. They like it when you question your worth because it keeps you exactly where they want you, stuck. And here's the worst part. You let them win every time you hold yourself back for their comfort, every time you silence your truth to protect their feelings, every time you stay in a place you've outgrown just because walking away feels too scary. And I get it. I really do, because letting go hurts. It feels like failure. It feels like loss. You think, what if I'm wrong? What if I regret it? What if I end up alone? But listen to me. Being alone is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Being surrounded by the wrong people is. Being alone gives you space to breathe, to think, to hear your own voice again. It gives you the quiet you need to rebuild trust in yourself. That's where your power lives, in those moments where it's just you and the truth. Have you ever noticed that every time you try to rise, every time you focus on your growth, every time you decide you're done settling, the wrong people suddenly have a problem with it? You set boundaries and they say you've changed. You focus on your goals and they call you selfish. You stop tolerating their negativity and suddenly you're the bad guy. That's not a coincidence, it's resistance. People who benefit from your self-doubt will always fight your evolution because your growth exposes their comfort. And if you keep clinging to them, if you keep making excuses, you'll stay right where you are, tired, drained, frustrated, and wondering why nothing ever changes. You cannot heal in the same environment that broke your confidence. You cannot evolve while trying to please people who only loved the version of you that stayed quiet. So here's what you need to do. Stop explaining yourself. Stop trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstand. Stop waiting for them to change, because they won't. The moment you choose you, some people will walk away. Let them. Some will talk behind your back. Ignore them. Some will try to make you feel guilty. Don't fall for it. Because the right people, the ones meant for you, will never ask you to shrink. They'll respect your boundaries. They'll celebrate your growth. They'll cheer when you win. Those are your people. They don't need an explanation. They just get it. They want you to grow, to evolve, to win. So stop making yourself small for people who can't handle your light. You don't need their permission to step into your next chapter. You've known for a long time what needs to happen. You've known that relationship is draining you, that job is suffocating you, that you've been sitting on a dream for far too long, and yet you keep waiting. Waiting for the right time, waiting for courage, waiting for certainty that never comes. And while you're waiting, life keeps moving. Days turn into months, months into years, and you're still stuck in the same place, repeating the same cycle. But let me tell you something. You are one decision away from a completely different life. One choice, one moment of courage. Hesitation is killing your potential. Every time you pause, every time you let doubt win, every time you let fear whisper, "Not yet," you are choosing the comfort of the familiar over the possibility of the extraordinary. Your brain loves comfort. It's wired for it. It wants safety, predictability, routine, even if that routine is destroying you. And that's why change feels impossible sometimes, because your brain will do everything it can to keep you in the same patterns. It will tell you stories. It will say, "You're not ready. You'll fail. You need more time." But it's lying. And the only way to break that pattern is with action. Not thought, not planning, not waiting, action. Small, fast, decisive action. This is where we start to change things. This is where everything begins to shift. Because once you realize you don't need permission, you just need movement, the whole game changes. You don't have to feel ready, you just have to start. And that's what we're going to talk about next. How to take that first step, how to move even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's terrifying, even when your brain screams stop, because that's exactly when you must go. And when you do, when you finally choose yourself, everything, your energy, your focus, your peace starts to return to you. That's where your power begins. You know what happens when you finally stop chasing people who drain you? The silence hits first. That strange, unfamiliar quiet where your phone doesn't buzz as much, where your mind isn't constantly spinning around what they said or didn't say. At first, it feels uncomfortable, almost wrong, like something's missing. But then something shifts. That silence, the one that used to feel heavy, starts to feel peaceful. It's not emptiness, it's space. Space that was always yours, you just couldn't hear it before. You start to realize how much noise you were living in. Every thought, every move, every decision filtered through someone else's opinion. You spent so much energy trying to earn approval that you forgot what it feels like to live for yourself. And here's the hard truth. When you've spent years putting everyone else first, choosing yourself will feel selfish at first. It will feel strange to say no, to take a day for yourself, to protect your peace instead of rescuing someone else's chaos. But that discomfort isn't a sign that you're wrong. It's a sign that you're healing. Because when you've built your identity around pleasing others, freedom feels foreign. You've been told your worth comes from being liked, from being useful, from being there for everyone but yourself. And now, when you decide to set boundaries, to step back, to stop explaining yourself, you'll start to feel guilty. That's normal. Guilt is the ghost of your old self trying to pull you back. But don't listen to it. You're not being rude, you're being real. You're not being distant, you're reclaiming space. You're not being difficult, you're finally being honest. And honesty, real honesty, is where your power starts to rebuild. Because the truth is, people who truly care about you don't need you small. They don't need you to bend or break to make them comfortable. They don't measure their love for you by how much you sacrifice. The ones who love you for real, they cheer when you rise, they clap when you win. They're proud, not threatened. So if your growth bothers someone, that's not your problem to solve. That's their insecurity revealing itself. And your job isn't to shrink to make them feel better, it's to keep growing anyway. There comes a point where you have to stop proving your worth to people who refuse to see it. You can't heal in the same environment that hurt you, and you can't build a new life while defending the old one. The more you explain, the more you delay your own peace. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing yourself. You don't need to justify why you walked away, why you stopped engaging, why you said enough. You're not required to keep showing up where your soul no longer feels safe. The thing is, most people don't change because they're waiting for the feeling to be right. They wait for confidence, for courage, for some kind of sign that says now's the time. But that moment never comes. You don't get confidence before you act. You get it after. It's built, not given. It's earned through repetition, through doing the hard thing again and again until your brain understands that you can trust yourself. Let me tell you something, you will never feel fully ready. Not for the big decisions, not for the moments that truly matter. You won't feel ready to walk away. You won't feel ready to start the business, to make the change, to speak up. But ready isn't a feeling, it's a decision. Every time you decide to move, even when fear is still in the room, you're teaching your brain a new truth. That fear doesn't control you anymore. Your brain is wired to protect you from discomfort. That's its job. It's why you hesitate, why you second guess, why you cling to what's familiar, even when it hurts. But what your brain doesn't realize is that comfort and safety aren't the same thing. Comfort can destroy you slowly. Comfort can trap you in mediocrity, in relationships that suffocate you, in habits that numb you. Growth, on the other hand, feels uncomfortable at first, but that's where life begins again. So when you catch yourself hesitating, when you feel that moment of doubt before a decision, that's your cue. That's your brain trying to protect the version of you that doesn't exist anymore. Don't let it win. You've already survived harder things than this. You've faced moments you thought would break you, and yet here you are, stronger, wiser, more capable than you give yourself credit for. And this is the shift that changes everything. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What if I don't? What if this time it works? What if this time you don't back down? What if by choosing yourself, you unlock the version of you that's been waiting to take over all along?" That's the moment when life starts to open up again. Not because the fear disappears, but because you move anyway. You count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you go. No more explaining, no more waiting, no more doubting, just movement. Because the second you take that first step, everything starts to shift. The hesitation loses its grip, the fear gets quieter, and your power, the one you thought you lost, comes rushing back. That's where we begin. Here's what nobody tells you about change. It's not just about taking a different action, it's about becoming someone new while the old version of you is still fighting to survive. You feel it, don't you? That inner pull between who you are and who you're trying to become. It's uncomfortable. It's confusing. It's that strange space where you're no longer the person you used to be, but not yet the person you're meant to be. And that space, that's where most people quit. Not because they're weak, but because transformation feels like loss before it feels like growth. You start to lose interest in things that once excited you. You outgrow conversations, habits, people. You crave something deeper. Something that feels aligned, but you can't quite explain it. That's what growth feels like. It's the quiet realization that your old life doesn't fit anymore, no matter how hard you try to squeeze back into it. And when that happens, your mind will panic. It'll tell you you're making a mistake, that you're being ungrateful, that maybe you're asking for too much. But that's not fear speaking, that's familiarity. Your brain is addicted to what it knows, even when what it knows is keeping you stuck. You've probably heard that voice before, the one that whispers, "Maybe it's not that bad." But let me ask you something. If you have to convince yourself to stay, isn't that already your answer? See, real growth is not glamorous. It's messy. It's lonely. It's filled with days when you doubt everything, yourself, your choices, your direction. It's waking up one morning feeling unstoppable and the next questioning if you're completely lost. But that's the process. You're rewiring everything, your thoughts, your patterns, your identity. That's not supposed to feel easy. You're literally breaking the rules your brain has lived by for years. Here's the truth most people won't admit. When you choose growth, you will lose people. You will lose parts of yourself. You will lose comfort. But what you gain, clarity, peace, alignment, it's worth every ounce of discomfort. Because the moment you stop living to be understood by everyone else, you start to understand yourself. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop chasing closure. You start standing in your own certainty even when nobody claps for you. And I know that silence can feel brutal. The people who once called you loyal will call you distant. The ones who once leaned on you will say you've changed. They'll try to guilt you, remind you of who you used to be. But they're not wrong. You have changed, you've grown, you've started choosing peace over chaos, direction over distraction. You've started realizing that not everyone deserves a seat in your next chapter, especially if they were never rooting for your story to evolve. The hardest part of growth isn't letting others go. It's letting go of the version of you that tolerated less than you deserved. The one who stayed quiet to keep the peace. The one who over-explained, over-apologized, over-delivered. That version of you was doing their best, but they can't come with you now. To step into your next level, you have to stop negotiating with your old limits. You have to stop playing small just to make life easier for people who are comfortable with your past. And here's what's even harder to accept. Sometimes healing looks like boredom, because for so long, your nervous system was addicted to chaos, the constant fixing, pleasing, performing. So when life finally slows down, when peace enters the room, your body doesn't recognize it. It thinks something's wrong. But that stillness, that's not emptiness. That's stability. That's your new baseline being built. You're learning that not every message needs a response. Not every opinion deserves a reaction. Not every invitation deserves your yes. You're learning to preserve your energy for things that move you forward. And little by little, that discipline starts to rebuild your confidence. Not the kind that needs applause, but the kind that's quiet, grounded, and unshakable. So when that voice of doubt shows up, and it will, don't argue with it. Don't try to prove it wrong. Just act anyway. Take the next step anyway. The more you move, the more your brain learns that fear doesn't mean stop. It just means go carefully. Every action, every boundary, every time you choose yourself, you're rewriting the story your mind tells about who you are. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll wake up and something will feel different. You'll look around and realize that you no longer crave the things that once kept you small. The noise that used to distract you will sound distant. The people who used to drain you will fade from your focus, and you'll finally understand. This is what peace feels like. This is what self-trust sounds like. Not loud, not dramatic, but calm, certain, steady. You're not chasing anymore. You're choosing. You're not proving anymore. You're becoming. And the version of you who once doubted everything is finally learning what it means to believe again. Not in luck, not in timing, but in yourself. There comes a point when you realize that the life you're building has nothing to do with what other people expect of you and everything to do with what you decide to tolerate, what you decide to chase, and what you decide to walk away from. That moment usually doesn't arrive with fireworks or clarity. It arrives quietly, often in exhaustion. You wake up one day and realize you're tired of being tired. Tired of explaining yourself, tired of waiting for someone to give you permission to live differently. And that's the day something inside you snaps, not in anger, but in truth. You stop begging life to feel easier and start deciding to make it simpler. See, most people never get to that point because they confuse change with chaos. They think if they start over, it means they've failed. But sometimes walking away is not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is stop forcing something that's already over. You can't rebuild peace in the same place you lost it. You can't heal in an environment that keeps reminding you of who you used to be. There's a moment when you have to choose comfort or growth, familiar pain or unfamiliar freedom. You don't get both. Growth is quiet. It doesn't always look brave. It often looks like sitting in silence, like being misunderstood, like losing people you thought would never leave. It's choosing to say less when your instinct is to explain. It's staying calm when you could defend yourself. It's learning to let your peace speak for you. And that's where real power begins, when your worth no longer depends on how loud you can prove it. Because if you think about it, most of your energy hasn't been spent chasing success or peace. It's been spent managing perceptions, trying to appear okay, trying to be agreeable, trying not to disappoint. But peace doesn't come from control. It comes from release. The moment you stop trying to convince everyone that you're enough, you start to feel that you already are. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It begins with small decisions, the kind that don't look like much from the outside. You cancel the plans that don't feel right. You stop responding to people who only reach out when they need something. You start saying no without guilt. And at first, it feels selfish. It feels wrong. But that's just the echo of your old conditioning. You've been taught to confuse self-respect with arrogance, boundaries with rejection, solitude with loneliness. But solitude isn't punishment. It's the foundation of clarity. When you start spending time alone, really alone, something incredible happens. You begin to hear your own thoughts clearly. You start noticing patterns. How often you've said yes when you wanted to say no. How many times you've stayed silent when something inside you wanted to speak. And you start realizing that the person you've been waiting for to save you, to understand you, to choose you, was you all along. You don't need a rescue. You need responsibility. Responsibility for your own peace, for your own decisions, for your own growth. That's where freedom starts, not when you escape your circumstances, but when you stop giving them power over you. You can't control how people see you, but you can control how long you stay in places that require you to keep proving your worth. The truth is, you will always be too much for someone. Too driven, too quiet, too ambitious, too emotional, that's fine. You're not meant to fit everywhere. You're meant to find where your energy flows naturally. And you can't do that if you keep dimming your light just to make others feel comfortable in their shadows. The people who belong in your future will never ask you to shrink to fit their comfort. They'll make space for your fullness. And here's the beauty of it. Once you stop chasing the wrong things, the right ones find you easily. The peace you were desperate to create starts showing up. The opportunities you thought you weren't ready for start appearing because you finally have space for them. You finally have energy for them. The universe doesn't give peace to people who beg for it. It gives it to people who clear room for it. That's what this stage of your life is about. Clearing space, cleaning mental clutter, letting go of expectations that no longer belong to you. It's about doing less, but with more purpose. It's about recognizing that not everything that demands your attention deserves it. You can't build a future if your energy is constantly tied to the past. And here's something you need to remember. Peace will cost you your old life. It will cost you your need to be understood, your desire to be liked, your attachment to old versions of yourself. It will cost you the relationships that survive only when you stay small. But what you gain in return is priceless. Clarity, self-respect, direction. You start waking up with a sense of alignment instead of anxiety. You start going to bed proud instead of drained. It's not about being fearless. It's about being brave enough to act even when fear is still whispering. It's about knowing that peace isn't a place you find. It's a choice you make every single day. You make it when you stop reacting to every provocation. You make it when you choose silence over chaos. You make it when you realize you don't need to fix anyone. You just need to keep growing. So if life feels quieter right now, don't mistake that for nothing happening. Something is happening. You're shifting, you're healing, you're becoming. And when the noise finally fades, what remains is something stronger than motivation, self-trust. The quiet kind that doesn't scream for attention but stands firm, knowing that you are finally on your own side. At some point, you have to stop searching for the moment when everything will finally make sense. It doesn't arrive with an announcement or a sudden burst of clarity. It sneaks in quietly, disguised as a single thought. I can't keep living like this. That's the moment when your transformation truly begins. Not when things get easier, but when you finally accept that waiting won't save you. Most people spend their whole lives waiting. Waiting for motivation, waiting for the right timing, waiting for someone to believe in them. But life doesn't reward waiting, it rewards movement. You don't stumble into purpose by sitting still. You discover it by taking one step, then another, even when you have no idea where they'll lead. The truth is, nobody feels ready. Not the people you admire, not the ones who look like they have it all figured out. The difference between them and you isn't talent, it's decision. They decided to start before they felt ready. Action is the antidote to fear. Fear doesn't disappear when you think long enough. It fades only when you move through it. Your brain is designed to protect you from pain, not to help you grow. It will give you every excuse in the world to stay the same. It's not the right time. You don't know enough yet. What if you fail? But fear is a liar. It dresses up as logic, as caution, as patience. What it's really saying is, don't risk it. Don't change. Don't become who you're meant to be. But here's the truth. The risk of staying the same is far greater than the risk of change. Because staying the same guarantees one thing: regret. It's a slow, quiet ache that grows each time you let fear win. You know that feeling. The one that hits when you see someone doing the very thing you've always wanted to do. And your first thought isn't jealousy, it's longing. That's your potential reminding you it's still there, waiting for you to choose it. And that's all it takes. A choice. Not a perfect plan, not unshakable confidence. Just a choice to stop hesitating and start moving. Because clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. You figure things out by trying, by failing, by adjusting. Every step forward teaches you something about who you are and what you want. Every mistake is data. Every setback is feedback. The people who build great lives aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who refuse to stop getting up. But let's be honest, consistency is hard. Not because the actions are complicated, but because your emotions get in the way. You'll wake up some days ready to conquer the world, and others where even getting out of bed feels like a battle. That's normal. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is the bridge that carries you when motivation disappears. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself. It's about remembering your why when your feelings forget it. And here's something nobody tells you. Progress is rarely loud. It doesn't look cinematic. Most of the time, it's invisible. The small choices you make when no one's watching, the times you choose to work instead of scrolling, the nights you sit with discomfort instead of distracting yourself, the quiet mornings you repeat the habits that no one will ever applaud you for. That's where growth hides, in the unglamorous moments where you show up anyway. You see, Success, real, lasting success, isn't about intensity. It's about consistency. Anyone can push hard for a week, but the ones who change their lives are the ones who show up even when it's boring, even when it's uncomfortable, even when no one notices. Because each small action compounds. Each decision builds momentum. And one day, without realizing it, you wake up and realize the version of yourself you've been chasing is now your reality. You can't control how fast it happens, but you can control whether it happens at all. Every day, you're given two choices: comfort or growth. Every day, your habits cast a vote for the person you're becoming. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to start keeping the promises you make to yourself. You said you'd wake up early? Do it. You said you'd stop doubting yourself. Catch that thought and reframe it. You said you'd take the first step. Take it. Because each time you follow through, you're teaching your brain a new identity. I am someone who keeps going. That identity is everything. When you start believing in your ability to follow through, you stop relying on motivation. You stop waiting for external validation. You start moving because it's who you are, not because it feels good. That's what confidence really is. Not arrogance, but self-trust. It's knowing that no matter what happens, you'll figure it out. And maybe that's what you've been missing. Not a plan, not a miracle, but trust. Trust that you can start small and still make it. Trust that failure won't destroy you, it'll refine you. Trust that the version of you who's been hiding under doubt and fear is still there, waiting to be chosen. So stop waiting for the perfect time. It's never coming. Stop waiting to feel ready. You won't. Stop waiting for someone to give you permission. You already have it. This is your moment, not next year, not when things settle down, right now. Because every day you hesitate, you're reinforcing the story that you're not ready. And every day you take action, no matter how small, you're rewriting it. The question isn't, can you do it? The question is, will you? Because deep down, you already know the answer. You always have. There's a quiet moment in everyone's life when the noise fades just long enough for you to hear the truth you've been avoiding. It doesn't arrive in a shout. It comes as a whisper, a single, undeniable thought that settles deep in your chest. You've been living beneath your potential. And the moment you hear it, you can't unhear it. It follows you through your days, tugging gently every time you play small, every time you say, I'm fine when you're not, every time you settle for less because it's easier this way. That voice isn't there to shame you. It's there to wake you up because somewhere along the way, you stopped demanding more of yourself. You stopped dreaming as boldly as you used to. You started confusing being busy with being fulfilled. You convinced yourself that as long as things weren't falling apart, they must be fine. But fine is the enemy of great. Fine is where passion goes to die quietly. Fine is where potential suffocates under the weight of complacency. And the truth is, you weren't born for fine. You were born to build something that feels alive. Think about it. When was the last time you felt proud of yourself? Not because you achieved something, but because you refused to give up when it got uncomfortable. When was the last time you did something just for you? Not because it looked impressive, but because it mattered? That's the kind of pride that rebuilds confidence from the inside out. The kind that doesn't depend on anyone's approval. We live in a world obsessed with outcomes. Numbers, likes, validation, applause. But fulfillment isn't found in outcomes. It's found in alignment. It's waking up and knowing that your effort matches your truth, that your actions reflect your values, that the path you're walking, even if it's uncertain, feels right. That's where peace lives, not in perfection, but in integrity. The hardest part is that alignment requires honesty, and honesty often leads to disruption. When you start being honest about what you really want, your life begins to shift. You outgrow routines. You question relationships. You start to feel uncomfortable in rooms where you used to feel safe. That's not you losing your way. That's you finding it. Growth demands separation from the familiar. You can't evolve and stay comfortable at the same time. And that's why most people stop halfway, because the middle of transformation feels like chaos. It feels like you're walking away from everything you know, with no guarantee of what's next. But the chaos isn't a sign that you're lost. It's proof that you're shedding what's no longer true. You're not breaking down, you're breaking open. If you've ever wondered why it feels so heavy, why it feels like progress hurts more than failure, it's because growth is grief. You're mourning the version of yourself that believed playing small was safer. You're mourning the habits that once protected you but now limit you. You're mourning a life that once fit perfectly but no longer does. And that grief, as painful as it is sacred. It's the cost of becoming someone new. So don't rush through it. Don't numb it. Sit with it. Because on the other side of that discomfort is clarity, the kind of clarity that doesn't come from thinking, but from experiencing. You'll start to see what truly matters, what's real, and what you've been carrying that was never yours to hold. You'll realize that the things you thought you needed, validation, control, constant reassurance, were just distractions from the truth that you've always been enough. And once that realization hits, something powerful happens. You stop chasing, you stop begging for peace in places that only give you chaos, you stop proving and start becoming. Life doesn't suddenly get easier, but it starts to make sense. Because now you're living from your center, not from fear. Let me tell you something. No one is coming to hand you the life you want. No one's going to show up and say, it's time now. The only permission you've ever needed is your own. And once you give it, everything changes. You stop apologizing for your ambition. You stop shrinking around people who are intimidated by your growth. You stop second-guessing yourself just because others don't understand your vision. You start owning it. That's what self-respect looks like. It's not loud or defensive. It's quiet and certain. It's the energy that says, I'm no longer negotiating with my own potential. It's the way you carry yourself when you finally understand that peace and purpose aren't things you find. They're things you create. And creation takes courage. Courage to stand alone. Courage to try and fail and try again. Courage to let people misunderstand you while you stay loyal to what feels right. Courage to take one more step even when no one's cheering. And because one day the results will show. The consistency, the discipline, the nights you chose, progress over comfort, they'll all add up. And you'll look back and realize that the version of you who doubted everything built this life piece by piece. You'll see that every not yet from the world didn't stop you. Every closed door redirected you. Every season of loneliness taught you self-trust. And that's when you'll understand that you were never stuck. You were just preparing. Every hesitation, every lesson, every delay was shaping the person capable of handling what you asked for. You weren't waiting for the right time. The right time was waiting for you to become ready. So here you are, standing at the edge of everything familiar, holding a choice that could redefine your entire future. You can stay comfortable, or you can step forward. You can cling to what's safe, or you can bet on yourself. But remember this, the life you want will never appear while you're still hiding from the one you're meant to live. And the moment you move, even if it's just one small step, life will meet you halfway, every single time. There comes a point when you stop asking for signs and start realizing that you are the sign. That restless feeling, that quiet dissatisfaction, that thought that won't leave you alone. That's not confusion, that's direction. It's life whispering, there's more for you than this. And deep down, you know it's true. You've outgrown the version of yourself that survives instead of thrives, that says, maybe someday, instead of, why not now? But between knowing and doing, there's a gap. And that gap is where most people spend their lives. They wait. They tell themselves they're being patient, that timing matters, that when the stars align, they'll move. But time doesn't wait for readiness. It moves whether you move or not. The opportunities you hesitate on don't vanish. They just go to someone else who was brave enough to say yes. The truth is, the longer you wait to bet on yourself, the harder it becomes to believe you still can. You see, life will always test your commitment to change. The moment you decide to level up, something will appear to challenge that decision. Doubt, fear, resistance, even the opinions of the people closest to you. It's like the universe saying, are you sure? And in those moments, your answer can't be words, it has to be action. Because hesitation is the death of momentum. You can't think your way into confidence. You build it through movement. That's what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. Not intelligence, not luck. Just the willingness to act before it feels easy. You want a new life, but you're still arguing for your limitations. You want to be confident, but you keep talking yourself out of trying. You want change, but you keep defending your comfort. You can't hold on to both. At some point, you have to choose which version of yourself you're more loyal to, the one you've been or the one you're becoming. Becoming is messy. It requires sacrifice. It means letting go of the old stories you've been telling about who you are, I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not ready yet. I always mess things up. Those aren't truths, they're habits. Repeated sentences that turned into identity. And the moment you decide to stop repeating them, you take back control of your narrative. Because the story you tell about yourself shapes every decision you make. If you believe you're someone who always quits, you'll keep quitting. If you believe you're capable, your brain starts finding evidence to prove it. It's not magic, it's psychology. Your mind works for whoever you decide to be. So maybe it's time to ask, what story have you been telling? The one where you're the victim of circumstance, or the one where you take responsibility for your life? Because responsibility is not blame, it's power. It's the moment you stop waiting for someone to fix things and start realizing you're the only one who can. And yes, it's uncomfortable. It's easier to say I can't than I haven't tried hard enough. It's easier to point at what went wrong than to admit you stopped showing up. But honesty with yourself is the birthplace of change. You can't build a new life while protecting old excuses. This is where discipline comes in, not the harsh, rigid kind, but the self-respect kind. Discipline is simply remembering what you said you wanted, even when your mood changes. It's showing up for your goals the same way you've shown up for everyone else. It's realizing that the life you want is built in ordinary moments, not when it's convenient, not when it's inspiring, but when it's hard, repetitive, and quiet. That's where strength is forged. And here's something most people don't understand. Consistency is emotional. You don't lose momentum because you're lazy. You lose it because you tie your effort to your emotions. You only act when you feel motivated. You only try when it feels exciting. But discipline asks you to do it regardless. To show up on the days when you don't feel like it, precisely because those are the days that matter most. The truth is, you don't need to know the entire path. You just need to take the next step. You can't steer a parked car. Movement creates direction. You figure it out as you go. You learn by doing. The confidence you're waiting for doesn't appear before you act. It's built through the act itself. You're not meant to have it all figured out. You're meant to have the courage to start. And yes, you'll fail. You'll make mistakes. You'll question yourself 100 times. But failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the proof that you're trying. The real failure is staying in the same place, calling it safety when it's really fear. Because fear doesn't go away when you hide from it. It fades when you face it. So stop negotiating with your potential. Stop promising yourself next week or when things settle down. The conditions will never be perfect. The right time is never coming, and you have to create it. Every great thing that has ever existed began with one uncomfortable step. The book unwritten, the dream unchased, the conversation avoided, all of it changes the moment you move. And maybe that's the whole point, to stop waiting for courage and start becoming it, to stop looking for signs and start being one. Because life doesn't change when you finally get ready. It changes the moment you decide that the person you're becoming deserves a chance to exist. Today, not someday. So count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Not because it's easy, not because you're fearless, but because deep down, you finally understand that fear was never the enemy. Waiting was. There's a moment that arrives quietly, like the calm after a long storm. You're not exactly where you want to be yet, but for the first time, you're not running from yourself either. You've stopped chasing approval, stopped explaining, stopped apologizing for wanting more. And in that stillness, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to recognize yourself again. Not the version that's been shaped by other people's expectations, not the one that's been carrying guilt and fear for years, but the real you. The one who's been buried under layers of doubt and distraction, waiting for you to notice. You see, change doesn't just rearrange your life, it rearranges your identity. Every boundary you set, every time you say no, every moment you choose honesty over convenience, you're teaching yourself who you truly are. You're not who you were when you started this journey. You're stronger, clearer, more deliberate. You no longer move to be liked. You move to be aligned. You no longer speak to be heard. You speak to be understood. And you no longer chase peace, you protect it. But here's where it gets tricky. Once you start living with intention, life will test it. Not because the world is cruel, but because growth always invites resistance. The old patterns will whisper, come back. It's easier here. The old relationships will tug at you, asking for the version of you that no longer exists. And you'll be tempted. Because change, even when it's right, can feel lonely. You'll wonder if it's worth it. You'll question if the solitude that follows growth is a sign that you've made a mistake. But listen closely. It's not loneliness, it's expansion. The silence that used to feel heavy is now space. Space for better things, deeper connections, and truer versions of everything that's meant for you. It's in that silence that you start noticing what you used to miss. You begin to see how much energy you wasted trying to be understood by people who were never listening. You see how much time you gave to places that never gave anything back. And slowly, something shifts. You stop reacting. You stop over-explaining. You stop negotiating your value. You start letting things unfold, trusting that what's meant for you doesn't require convincing. That's the essence of maturity. It's not about pretending to be unbothered. It's about being genuinely unshaken. It's about understanding that peace doesn't mean everything's perfect. It means you've stopped participating in what doesn't align with you. The things that once triggered you no longer have the same hold. You stop needing closure from others because you start giving it to yourself. You stop chasing answers from people who couldn't give you honesty even if they tried. And in that quiet power, you discover something even more important: forgiveness. Not the kind that excuses what happened, but the kind that frees you from it. You realize that resentment is just another form of attachment. It keeps you tied to a moment that no longer exists. So you let go. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Because carrying anger is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to feel it. You let it go for your own liberation. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering without the weight. It's being able to look at what broke you and see how it built you. Every wound, every mistake, every betrayal, it taught you something about your own capacity to rise. You don't heal by erasing the past. You heal by integrating it. You learn to take the lessons and leave the pain. You start turning every scar into a sentence in your story instead of a wall you hide behind. And that's when you realize something powerful. Your past doesn't define you. It refines you. It's not a sentence, it's a curriculum. Everything that once felt like punishment was actually preparation. The rejection that hurt you taught you resilience. The loss that broke you built your empathy. The silence that scared you gave you self-trust. Every chapter served its purpose. You no longer need to prove your worth through struggle. You no longer need to earn love by overextending yourself. You start to understand that peace is not the absence of challenges. It's the presence of clarity. And clarity changes everything. When you know who you are, decisions become easier. You no longer chase what's uncertain. You stop confusing intensity with connection. You stop fighting battles that aren't yours to fight. Now, everything becomes intentional. You choose the people you keep close. You choose the habits you nurture. You choose the battles that deserve your energy. You start protecting your time as if it were sacred, because it is. And in doing so, you build a new kind of life, one that's not loud, not chaotic, not performative, a life that feels calm, focused, and real. But here's the truth. Peace doesn't mean your life becomes perfect. There will still be storms. There will still be doubts. There will still be moments where the old you whispers, "Are you sure this is the right path?" But the difference now is that you won't run. You'll pause, breathe, and remind yourself that storms don't mean failure. They mean movement. Growth always stirs the wind before it settles. This is the season where you stop surviving and start living deliberately. You stop waking up reacting to life and start creating it. You stop waiting for permission to feel proud and start owning your progress. You realize that the person you've been becoming isn't waiting to arrive. It's already here. So as you move forward, carry this truth with you. Peace is not passive. It's not the absence of noise. It's the mastery of focus. It's choosing what deserves your attention and releasing what doesn't. It's looking at your life and finally saying, I built this, I chose this, and I'm not done yet. Because the work isn't over. It never really is. But for the first time, it doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like purpose.